My husband invited his ex to live with us without even asking me. I said no way, but he told me if I had a problem with it, I could just leave. So I've filed for divorce, and now she's out there bragging about sleeping with him. I'm 27, and I've been married to my husband Jacob, who's 28, for almost 2 years now, but I think we might be headed for a divorce over something that went down just 3 days ago. A couple of days ago, Jacob brought home this friend from high school, and it turned out to be a woman. This woman, Allison, was his friend back in high school, and when he brought her home, it was evening, so I thought they just bumped into each other at the mall where Jacob had been, and he invited her over for dinner or something. I welcomed her in and treated her like any other guest, but during dinner, I could tell there was something off about her. The way she was talking to Jacob made me feel like they had a thing back in high school, and by the end of the evening, I just wanted her to leave, honestly. She was making me super uncomfortable with all her inside jokes with my husband and the way she'd cozy up to him or try to touch him every few seconds. It felt like she was just finding excuses to touch him on the arm or the hand, and she was laughing way too hard at all his jokes, even the ones that weren't that funny. So you can see why I wasn't comfortable with this woman, and after dessert I figured she'd be leaving soon. I tried to be as pleasant as I could, despite feeling super uncomfortable. But 2 hours went by, and around 10, when she still hadn't left, I pulled Jacob aside and asked him what the hell was going on because this was just weird. She just wasn't leaving. And it was only then, when I asked, that Jacob told me he had actually invited her to live with us because she'd been evicted from her house for not paying rent for the past 4 months. So now she's gonna crash at our place tonight and probably stick around for a few days too, until she finds a new spot to move into. He also let me know that she didn't bump into him at the mall like I thought. Nope, they actually reconnected on social media and had been chatting online for weeks before all this went down. That's how he found out she needed a place to crash and offered our place as a temporary solution. I was pretty ticked off about it and asked him why he didn't run it by me first before inviting her to move in. I also told him that I wasn't cool with her living with us because she made me feel weird all night with her strange behavior around Jacob. He tried to brush it off and said I was just being nuts, that he was only helping out a friend in need, but I told him I wanted her out and I wasn't going to stand for this. I insisted that he talk to her and tell her to leave, but he said he'd already promised her and couldn't break her heart like that. Apparently, all her stuff was in the car and she had moved out of her apartment today. He helped her move out and he couldn't just tell her it wasn't happening. He was acting all weird and shifty, so I asked him to come clean and tell me who this Allison really was. And as it turns out, my gut feeling was right about her, and Jacob having a thing back in high school because he admitted that she was actually his ex-girlfriend from his senior year, and they broke up because he had to go off to college. I totally flipped out when he told me that because the last thing I wanted was for his ex to be living with us, especially when it felt like she still had feelings for him. He promised me that he and Allison were done, and had been done for a long time, but that didn't do anything to calm my nerves. I told him I wanted out and I wanted her out ASAP. I was pretty pissed and you could totally hear it in my voice. I thought he'd take me seriously, but nope, he just turned around and said he wasn't kicking her out. If I had a problem with Allison living with us, then I could hit the road. He said he was just trying to help a friend in need, and if I was so insecure that I couldn't deal with it, then I was the problem and I should leave. After dropping that bomb, he walked out and left me alone in the bedroom. I was shocked he was choosing Allison over me, his wife of 2 years. We'd been together for almost 3 years before tying the knot, so you'd think I'd be a lot more important to him than some girl he dated in high school for a year before heading off to college. I was stunned after he told me to leave and didn't know what to say for a couple of seconds. When I went back into the living room, I saw him sitting on the couch next to Allison, both of them laughing at some sitcom on TV. Allison even had the nerve to tell me to come sit beside them, then she scooted over to get really close to Jacob, so I'd have to sit next to her while she cozied up to my husband. After she said that, I left and went back to the bedroom, packed some of my stuff into a bag, and walked back into the living room. I didn't even care that Allison was right there. I told Jacob he could either kick her out right now and we could talk this out, or I was out of there. He said nothing, just pursed his lips and looked away while Allison got up and started talking to me in this fake sweet voice, saying she didn't mean to cause any trouble. She was just an old friend, and that's all it was going to be. Then she turned around and asked Jacob, right, Jake? Now I know that Jacob hates it when people call him Jake, but when Allison said it, he didn't seem to mind at all. I just sighed, stormed out the door, and slammed it as hard as I could. Jacob didn't even chase after me or try to stop me, and of course, Allison didn't either because this was clearly what she wanted all along. It was a bit weird, but once I was outside, I decided to hang back and see what would go down in the living room after I left. I know it sounds nuts, but I had this gut feeling that I needed to do it. And man, am I glad I did, because I could peek through the curtain since we never fully closed them. And I saw that as soon as I was out the door, Allison and Jacob sat next to each other and I could barely hear it, but they were definitely talking about me. Jacob looked upset, and after a bit, to my total shock, Jacob laid down and put his head on Allison's lap, and she started stroking his hair. I was livid when I saw that, and right then and there, I grabbed my phone and snapped a picture of the two of them like that. They couldn't see me, but I could see them, and I made sure to get an angle where you could see both their faces in the shot. Once I had the picture, I figured I didn't need to stick around anymore and walked all the way to a friend's place. I could have driven, but I really didn't feel like it, especially in the mood I was in. I just wanted to walk and process what I'd just seen. My blood was boiling, and I knew I had to do something to get back at Jacob for what he was doing to me. So before I knocked on my friend's door, I decided to hop online and post the picture I'd taken with a caption that just said cheater and nothing more. After I posted it, I knocked on my friend's door and she let me in. She had just checked her social media, and she asked me what the heck my post was about as soon as she saw me. Once I entered the living room, I explained the story to her after plopping down on the couch, and she told me that I'd gone a little too far in dealing with this because already, the comments are full of hate towards Allison and Jacob. She told me that while she agreed that Jacob needed to be called out, posting a personal picture of them that was so intimate was probably not the best way to go about the situation, and I could also get into legal trouble for it if it actually came down to that. I heard her out, and it actually made a lot of sense, what she was saying, so I decided to go ahead and delete the image from my account. But even after I took down the post, several people continued to text me to put it back up, because they thought that that was exactly what Jacob deserved. I was touched that so many people were on my side, but I got a harsh reality check when my friend told me that they didn't really care about my marriage or my relationship with Jacob, but they only cared about the gossip that they were going to get out of this. So I needed to stay out of the drama and ignore the people who were texting me because they only cared about all the drama that was going to come out of this, not about my emotional well-being. She was right, so I decided to turn off my phone for a while and do something to distract myself. It was already pretty late at night when I'd shown up at my friend's place, so after a while, I just went to sleep. When I woke up the next morning, my friend told me that Jacob was waiting for me outside in the living room. He turned up just a couple of minutes before I woke up, and even though my friend had tried to send him back home, he refused to leave without seeing me first. I thought he was coming over to say sorry, and I was all set to shut him down because I wasn't in the mood to forgive him. But when I walked into the living room ready with my speech, I was totally shocked when Jacob's first words weren't "I'm sorry," but "Are you insane? And what the heck were you even thinking?" I knew he must be mad about my post from the night before, but he seemed more than just mad. He was freaking out and really upset. It all clicked when he told me that someone had sent that picture to his parents, and now they were refusing to talk to him, which was a big deal because he was planning to quit his job and start his own business. He needed his dad's money for that and wanted his dad to come on board as an investor. But now his dad wasn't even speaking to him, and his mom wasn't responding to any of his calls or texts. He told me that his parents hadn't even given him a reason why they had blocked him, but he knew it was all because of my post, since it happened right after I put up that picture of him with Allison. And now, he wanted me to talk to his parents and tell them it was just a prank or something to get them to talk to him again, because he wasn't going to let my stupid mistake mess up his future. I probably would have apologized to him if he hadn't demanded that I speak to his parents and fix everything. Because honestly, after what he'd done the night before, I didn't think he had any right to make demands like that. And it really got under my skin how entitled he was acting, so I told him he deserved this because he'd been cheating on me. To that, he said that Allison was literally just a friend, and I was blowing this way out of proportion. He then accused me of being insecure, jealous, and toxic, and even told me that after I left, Allison had been comforting him, which is why he had rested his head on her lap. And that was it. They hadn't done anything funny together after I left because that's just not him. I told him I didn't trust him and didn't believe a word he was saying. I told him he needed to leave because I wasn't about to spend my whole day arguing with him. As far as I was concerned, he'd been emotionally involved at the very least with Allison, And I couldn't take that. I saw it with my own two eyes, and there was no way to hide it anymore. Even if I ignored the fact that he had rested his head on her lap and somehow got that image out of my head, I wouldn't be able to forget that he had chosen to let her stay with us even after I told him I was uncomfortable with it, and had even given him an ultimatum to pick between us, and he'd picked Allison. I wasn't okay with that, and I don't think any other woman in my position would have been cool with something like that. I told him to leave, and he did, but not before telling me that this wasn't over, which sounded like a threat, and I'm guessing it was. But so far he hasn't done anything except text me nonstop, telling me to talk to his parents and fix this. My friend thinks I should talk to his parents and do something about the situation, because as bad as what he did was, I shouldn't have posted that picture of them. Even if I wanted to expose them for what they were doing, I should have just made a post or something. But I posted a photograph, which really didn't sit right with her and felt like an invasion of their privacy. And I feel like she's right about this. But honestly, I can't just forget about what Jacob did to me. I'm pretty sure that Allison is still living with him, and it drives me up the wall just thinking about them in that house, my house. I feel like I should do something, but I really don't think he deserves my sympathy. Should I post a picture of my husband with his head in his high school ex's lap after he picked her over me? Update 1, hey, so I decided not to talk to my in-laws or do anything about this. Because like I said in my original post, I really don't think that my husband deserves anything good to happen to him right now. If he wants the situation to be fixed, he's going to have to do something about it himself. Because I ain't the one to go running to his parents, asking them to forgive him when I myself can't forget what he did. It's been 4 days since I posted, and almost a week since he brought Allison home. I'm pretty sure that she's still living with him because I made a fake account to keep tabs on her, and I saw that all her recent posts have a very familiar background. All those pictures were taken in and around my house, so I know she's still there. I can't believe the nerve Jacob has to still let Allison live in our house, even after everything that's gone down. But to be fair, everything that could go wrong has already gone wrong. So he might as well stay with her because now I think we're at the point of no return. I can't see myself going back to him no matter what, and he's probably not even going to try. So far, he's only been texting me to convince me to talk to his parents. I've just been ignoring all his texts. I haven't been able to block him yet, but I will, soon enough, as soon as I'm ready to cut him out of my life for good. I'm not at that point yet because we've been together for a long time, and this is really tough for me. I was angry in my original post, but now that all the anger is gone, all I feel is heartbroken because this is the end of my marriage, and I know it. The funny thing is, I never saw this coming at all. A lot of you asked me if there were any signs of him being bored or wanting to be with someone else. And honestly, there were never any signs. At no point did I ever think he didn't want to be with me. His cheating on me was something I never even imagined in my worst nightmares. It was that unlikely. We'd been in love for years, and he was pretty much head over heels for me before he even asked me out. It took me a while to say yes to him, but once we were together, there was no turning back. And now, this is where it ends. I really never could have seen this coming. So to say I'm shattered doesn't even begin to cover how I feel about my marriage ending like this. My friends and my parents have been super supportive, and I'm so grateful for that. I just hope I can stay strong through the divorce too. I've already filed for divorce. It's been a day since then, and I've got to say, I don't feel as relieved and confident as I thought I would. All I feel is stressed out and worried about what's going to happen. I'm still crashing at my friend's place and working from home because I just don't have the energy to go outside right now. Update 2, Jacob was served with the divorce papers today. He called me to ask if I was serious about this, and I told him yes. Then he started screaming at me on the phone. I had to pull it away from my ear because he was being so loud. He told me that I was taking this too far and tried to convince me that there was nothing going on between him and Allison. So I asked him if he was still letting her live in our home. He hesitated a little, but then confessed that he had indeed been living with her since I left. He told me that she had been his emotional support, apparently, after I stormed out, and I couldn't help but laugh when he said that. I pointed out the irony in what he was saying because if it hadn't been for Allison and their weird little friendship, he probably never would have needed any emotional support in the first place. He got really upset when I said that and told me that Allison always spoke highly of me, so it was disappointing for him to hear me treat her like a competition instead of a friend. I told him that I didn't care about what Allison thought about me. In fact, none of this was about Allison. This was about him and our relationship. I told him that I was getting a divorce from him, not from Allison. He was the one who had let me down. I couldn't care less about that woman even if I tried to. But I did expect certain things from my husband, and he had failed to live up to those expectations. I expected a certain amount of loyalty from him, and I expected him to put my feelings and our marriage before his friendship with his high school ex-girlfriend. He told me that I was being unfair and unreasonable. He told me that Allison was literally nothing but a friend, yet again, as if that was going to change anything. He then asked me what I would do if I had been in the same position as him, where a friend of the opposite gender had asked me for help. I told him truthfully that I would have tried to help to the best of my abilities, but if my husband felt uncomfortable, then I wouldn't hesitate to choose my marriage over my friendship. To me, my marriage was the top priority, and he had shown me that it was not the same for him. I would rather be with someone who I was on the same page with, especially about important things like this. He began to sound really exasperated and told me that I was getting way too emotional about these things and that I needed to learn to deal with my feelings like an adult, instead of acting like a baby, crying, and then storming out without even a discussion just because things weren't going my way. He tried to lecture me about how life isn't fair and all that jazz, but I wasn't in the mood to listen, so I hung up. I was about to block him when he texted me, saying I was acting immature and that I wasn't the victim here. If anything, he was the victim because, thanks to my irrational decision to post that picture, his parents weren't talking to him anymore and he had to put his business idea on hold. He told me he expected at least an apology from me. But he hadn't even gotten that, and instead, I'd sent him divorce papers just to make him feel bad for helping a friend. So I texted back right away and told him I was really sorry for posting that picture. And then I said, to make it even, I'd post a picture of myself with my guy friends where I'm being inappropriately close with them. Maybe that'll help him see things from my perspective. And then I blocked him, so that's done with. Update 3, well, we're in the middle of settlement negotiations right now. It's going to be a while before the divorce is finalized. But yesterday, I got a text from Allison saying she was really, really sorry because she'd accidentally ended up sleeping with Jacob. She claimed he'd been having a really tough time with the divorce and everything, so she was trying to comfort him, and it just happened. Of course, I didn't buy any of it, and I knew she was just saying it to rub it in my face. There was no way they were doing this for the first time after living together for more than 3 weeks, but I didn't care. Because I was getting rid of him and she was going to be stuck with him. If she could keep him, I didn't really want him anymore anyway. And I'm sure that guy who cheats once will cheat again without a second thought. Besides, if he cheated on me, his wife of 2 years, then Allison would have to be pretty delusional to think he wasn't going to cheat on her at some point. But whatever, it's not my problem anymore. I'm out of here.